Ned Sedgwick, the producer and usually the co-host of the Chelsea Physic Garden podcast. However, today is a very special episode of Chelsea Physic Garden podcast, and I'm not really the producer and definitely not a co-host. That's because for this episode, Chelsea Physic Garden partnered with the West London charity Octavia Foundation and their creative youth provisions. 7 young people signed up with the Octavia Foundation to come into the garden and create a podcast given only the episode title, Plants Have Secrets. Some split into teams, some did it solo, all of them chose completely different stuff. To help them in the studio and at the garden was Chelsea Physic Garden's Cinder. I'll let Cinder introduce themselves in their own words.
I am a horticultural and learning trainee, so it's a year-long placement and I'm working full-time, 35 hours a week. Doing a few weeks with the horticultural team and a few weeks with the learning team. So half my time I'm out in the garden with the birds, with the soil, the plants, the other gardeners. And then the other half the time I am in the learning office, either working on kind of programs for public engagement, doing kind of random officey bits, or I'm doing delivery and engagement with the public with like little school groups, which is lots of fun, or with older people that, come through to the garden, as well as projects like this, Plants Have Secrets.
Now, without any further ado, we'll be hearing from our first amazing team of young people, Roylan and Andres. They're going to be exploring the intercontinental link between Chelsea Physic Garden and the Andes. As they're both fluent Spanish speakers with Latin American links, they wanted to introduce this section not only in Spanish, but also in Quechua. Take it away, guys.
Okay, welcome to today's episode on Plants of the Andes here at Chelsea Physic Garden. My name is Roylan, known by many on social media. We will be talking about the plants which both have medicinal and cultural purposes, which will be accompanied by our 2 special guests, Andres and Cinder.
Hola, soy Andrés. Yo tengo una relación de parte de mis padres, ya que nacieron en Bolivia. Tengo una relación de los Andes por parte de mis padres que nacieron en Bolivia. Esta sesión estará en diferentes idiomas para que podamos conectarnos a diferentes personas de otros países. Espero que les guste.
Sumahamuska kankiche, kunankuti kaipalapi chahuarispa, kasunche, sach asmanta kai los Andes chegamanta. Suti kashan roilan resisca redes socialespi, palarisunche kai kunan kai sach askashanko, hampi kunapa kai cultura ukhupi, chanta acompañaspa, kawarisunche, iskai invitados especiales Andrés y Cinde.
It is time for exploration and botany, this time focusing on Latin America. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Roylan.
Hello, and I am Andres.
And what are you going to be looking at today?
Today's episode we'll be looking at plants from the Andes that are found in Chelsea Physic Garden, and we're going to be talking about how they both have medicinal purposes and cultural purposes to the Andes and the people.
All right, that sounds great. And what plants are you going to be talking about today?
I will be talking about the Cleistocactus straussii.
And I'll be talking about the Cinterna pubescens.
And for those of us that aren't initiated in the ways of botany, what are the common names of these plants?
My plant, the Cleistocactus straussii, is known as the silver torch, or also known as the woolly torch.
And the plant that we're talking about, the indigenous name for the plant is the quina.
All right, and do you know what language that is?
I believe it's in Quechua.
Where do you find these plants?
In the Andean regions, desert biomes of the Andes. But the Cleistocactus straussii is specifically found in Bolivia, in the Andean region there.
Hey, so why'd you pick these plants? Why the Andes? Why the South American plants in general? Where'd you come at that from?
So initially I picked it because of Bolivia. There's a lot of plants in the Chelsea Physic Garden that do come from the Andes, such as Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina. But we decided to pick Bolivia because it has close connections to us. Andres has Bolivian parents and I am known in the Bolivian community.
So I picked a plant because I like to know about medicine, and because the plant contains something called quinine. It's used to actually treat malaria, which was relevant back in the 1600s when malaria was a serious topic for people.
And yeah, the Chelsea Physic Garden is a garden of medicinal plants primarily, or at least that was its main purpose for hundreds of years. So it's good to mention the medicinal applications of these plants, yeah. So tell me a bit about the woolly torch. Where can it be found? How does it grow? What does it look like? How does it feel?
Well, some interesting facts about it is I think it's found 10,000 feet into the Andes. It's a endangered species because a lot of people poach it for house plants and things like that. I wouldn't recommend touching it because it has very fine spikes or thorns which will end you in A&E. And it will be very hard for the doctors to get it out. So I recommend you don't touch it, even though it's very tempting as, you know, it looks soft, it looks woolly, given the name.
Cool. And Andres, tell us about your plan. Where can we find it? How does it? Can we touch it? Will it send me to the A&E?
Well, I'll tell you, we're not sent to the A&E. First of all, it's actually found in Peru, parts of Peru, also in the Andes also found, that I know. The plant actually has big leaves when it's still a sapling. The stem is pretty slim when it grows to be an adult tree. The leaves will grow as big as the head, but the stem is still very slim.
Have either of you been to South America before?
No, I have been to Bolivia before, when I was younger, when I was 6, with my parents. So my grandma invited us to Bolivia, and so we all went there. I went to stay for a month, but we ended up staying for a couple of weeks, or 3 weeks. For my pollen allergy that I have, which now it's actually a lot. It doesn't affect me that much anymore because before, like in spring, it would seriously affect me. I'd be, probably like crying at night, my eyes sweating, and.
And have you ever seen these plants in person before?
I haven't actually until I went to the Chelsea Physic Garden, which was the first time that I've seen it.
Mm.
Can you remember any of the plants that you saw when you went over to Bolivia when you were 6 years old?
I can only recall one plant that I actually saw that was interesting. So I went. I went to Cochabamba, which is where my parents were born, and there was like this big cactus. It was like huge. Probably 2 adults could stand on each other, and the cactus would still be taller than it. So that's the one that got my ex when I was 6. I was small and it was huge for me. It was like
Wow.
it's a whole floor, a whole building.
Interesting. Yeah, cactuses are great. And Roylan, have you been to South America?
Technically, I haven't really been to South America, but I've been to an island called Trinidad and Tobago, which is off the coast of South America. So the climate's a bit similar, I'd say, to Venezuela, Colombia, places like that.
Yeah, Trinidad was many millennia ago, before sea level changes or whatever. Trinidad is connected to Venezuela by a land bridge, so it has like most of the Caribbean islands, it has a lot of flora and fauna that are native to South America. So it's an interesting place. What do you remember about the plants and wildlife in Trinidad and Tobago?
It was quite a mixture actually, because it was an island. I didn't think there would be much mountain ranges, but there's a lot of mountains there. There's a lot of greenery, tropical plants. I noticed a lot of palm trees, coconut trees, avocado trees, mango trees. Mango trees are very common there, especially people have them in their gardens, like my family. As well, on the island of Tobago, I noticed there was a lot of flowers there, like very vibrant flowers.
How do you feel about seeing plants from Bolivia and South America in a place like Chelsea Physic Garden in the heart of London?
Well, I actually find it very surprising that they have plants from South America and from the Andes specifically, because I didn't know there was that much of a connection between Bolivia and the UK. So it was quite surprising to find that there was these plants that we usually see in like the altiplane, I think it is in English, and Andean regions of Bolivia.
If you were born in the 600s a long time ago, your family would have had to go all the way to the Andes or to other regions of Peru to get the plant, and then bring it back to your house, and then use the quinine, because back in the 600s, malaria was something that we got it. It was seriously hard to treat. So this plant, when it was discovered, it was a great thing.
Do either of you have any personal connection to traditional Bolivian or South American or Andean medicines? Maybe someone in your family that practices, or that have any practices been used on you?
I've seen it like around. I wouldn't say because of colonization, a lot of Bolivians practice Catholicism and Christianity. So there is some aspects of the culture that has been taken away. The only way you'd really find like shamanism things if you go to deep into the Andes. Saying that there is a place in La Paz, which is the capital of Bolivia. Bolivia has two capitals, Sucre and La Paz. La Paz is the governmental one. It's a street called known as the Witches Market, but it's not actually witches. It's more of like shamanism, and they do like offerings and things for Pachamama, who is the Mother Earth, the god of the Incas. My personal experience, recently actually, it was celebration for Virgen de Ucupiña, which is one of the patron saints, like a saint in Bolivia. And I went to see it because I didn't know much about it, but I wanted to go learn just to spend time in an event. And this took place in London as well. And I noticed that they use a lot of coca leaves, which is traditional in Bolivian culture. You make teas with it, people chew on them. You can use them for fortune telling, you can use them for many. I mean, you can do anything with coca leaves because it's a sacred plant in Bolivia.
Right. You mentioned the Incas. Are these traditional practices in Bolivia, can those be traced back to the Incas or even before?
Yeah, so the Quechua culture has a lot of close connections to the Incas because it was a part of the Incan Empire, I believe in the 1400s. A lot of Bolivia's culture today has mixtures of impacts of African culture, which is brought to the Yungas region, which is in between the Amazon and the Andes. The Yungas region, it's called. You can see a lot of practices, as well as a dance which I participate in called Saya Afro-Boliviana. And it's a dance that's common in Bolivia as well. You can find many dances like caporales, which is a traditional dance which is very popular in carnivals and things, which has its roots with the Aymara communities. Bolivia is quite plurinational. They call it a plurinational state. It's a quite diverse country, many different tribes. But the original Incas were the Quechua, and then they invaded like the Aymara communities. And Aymara people are found in northern parts of Bolivia, some parts of Peru, and northern Chile.
All right, thanks for that. You know a lot about this topic.
Hmm.
Thanks for that. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure anyone listening has learned a lot too about Bolivian culture, about the plants there, about traditional medicines, about the history. That was great. Thanks a bunch. Do you have anything final you'd like to add, either of you?
Yuspagara hilatana kulakanak aymararu, pachi pachi yachtamasis quechuata. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for being a guest. And
We're now onto our first panel discussion. Where else could we start than with one of the most ubiquitous plant products in the world? Something that many of us can't imagine our life without: chocolate. Now, leading the discussion is KP, and he's joined by Hafsa and, as ever, Cinder.
My name's KP.
My name's Hafsa.
We're going to be talking about chocolate today. So first of all, how are you guys today?
I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah, I got in okay.
So do you guys like to tell me your favourite chocolate?
Ooh, it's a good question. Over to you, Hafsa. I need to think. Under the bus you go.
White chocolate Twix.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one gives me a toothache still.
I hear that. So is Kinder Bueno a chocolate or that? Okay, that's a heated debate we're
Is it
walking
white or
into.
milk chocolate?
The milk
Depends.
chocolate one. I don't do the white chocolate one.
No, I
White
feel like
chocolate's a
it's a
good one.
chocolate still.
It's the chocolate still.
Yeah. It's got multiple cocoa parts. Yeah.
White chocolate one's better though.
Yeah, the white chocolate one's much more better.
I guess I'm just different.
The normal one, I'm just bored of it now.
All right. Okay, so yeah.
Do you guys have any like funny stories that you like to tell about your chocolate?
So this happened a few years ago. My cousin, who was 4 years old, I didn't know that she was allergic to hazelnut, and my grandma decided to give her like a chocolate bar, And I was in the other room while she was eating it. I could just hear screaming and crying. And I walk in and her face is just swollen. And I tell my dad's panicking, and then we end up taking her to the hospital, and my auntie tells me that she's allergic to chocolate, but nobody told me. So I don't know how I was supposed to know. She's alright now though, guys. She's fine now.
Oh, thank Christ.
Damn. Do you have a funny story?
I mean, I have like, so like when I turned 18, yeah. Long story short, my mom was in a car accident, no fault of her own. And when I turned 18, this is when I was tiny. When I turned 18, I got a big settlement. I got a little settlement. It would have been about $1,000. And I am 18 years old. I have a bunch of money. What do I do with it? I buy, so you know those big Sharon bars of dairy milk, yeah, like 400 grams. I go into the shop daily. I'm not joking. I will buy one of them, bag of Maltesers, couple other bits, and I would just eat that. And that alone for weeks. I don't know how I didn't die of scurvy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And because of that, I think I have a sugar allergy. If I don't have a bunch of processed sugar, I like get a bit like, like a bit tired, a bit like anxious, a bit scotty, like, yeah.
That's built different at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, no, I'm really like, just this week, I was like, no, I need to start eating healthy because it's not good for your mood. It's not good for your skin. I know I'm glowing, but I could be better. Yeah, see, I could say that because no one can actually see me.
Yeah.
I love podcasts.
So one time we were at a residential trip and there was just no food. Like all the chicken and that was just dry. It was hard, it was chewy. It was coming like chewing gum at this rate. But because there was nothing good there, we had to do an hour and a half walk just to get chocolate. Because no one was satisfied and we just needed that sweetness going down our system.
That's mad though. With the last residential I was at, the food was horror. The chicken was also just awful.
If you can't make chicken, just don't make it.
Yeah, literally.
For real. Anyway, chocolate plant. I just remembered this is a garden podcast, so we should probably mention some plants. What can you tell us about the old chocolate?
I can tell you one thing. Did you lot know that your favourite chocolate came from Theobroma cacao? Did you know that?
I heard of it.
Yeah.
So it came from Central South America, but it was stolen. So right now there's a lot of like injustice for like your favourite chocolate. And then it also came from, what I've heard is that it came from like Ghana, but the Ghanaian people that like grew the plant, this, that and that, they don't get a lot of money from them growing the cacao. So obviously, and if you don't know like what the chocolate looks like, it has very like rough texture. It's like a seed, but like a big seed, and it has like it's like the size of your forearm. As if you shake it, it's like seeds in there. Like.
You're talking about the cocoa bean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one of them when we were in the classroom in the garden. They've like a bunch of dried plants, and we got one of them out. And who was it? One of our crew for the first time, because I'd never smelled it before. They were like, "Smell it," and it smells like dark chocolate. On the outside of the bean. This thing is like, what, 10, 15, 20 years old, and it still smells. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Literally.
Little reddy, brownie, beanie, homie.
It also looks like, what's it called? It looks like the
Rugby ball, yeah. Ghana and the Ivory Coast, I think, that are the biggest producers of chocolate in the world at the moment, which I always find it interesting when they take a plant like rubber trees in Brazil and they move them to tropical South Asia, I believe. And yeah, they crashed the whole economy of Brazil, actually, when that happened in like 1877.
Is there a cacao plant at Chelsea Physic Garden?
I think there is, you know.
You think?
I don't
There is
there is.
Yeah.
Why am I lying?
We saw it.
Yeah.
We all saw it.
Deep down we did.
Deep down, if we look within ourselves. We had a tour of the garden. One of the gardeners was kind enough to take time out of his day and, take us up and down the tropical corridor, which is the kind of, they've got glass houses that got recently renovated at the garden, and they've got like the three like big greenhouse kind of things. So what was it like to be in there? What was it like to see all these different parts from different parts of the world? Yeah, what was it like to see a chocolate plant? Because before I went to the garden the first time, I'd never seen one before. So that was interesting for me. Tell me more about your experience.
The experience is very interesting because like I've never seen like an interesting plant like that. Myself, like obviously I never knew that chocolate came from a plant. I just ate it because I like it. But then when I saw it, it became like more interesting. Like, I didn't know it came from a plant.
Yeah, the corridor was really hot. That's what mostly I was thinking about, how humid it was.
Well,
Like-
what?
I was
well,
sweating.
sadly-
Yeah, I was sweating as well. Do you like fruit and chocolates and stuff?
Do I like...
Or nuts or anything like that?
Well, okay, so I like
No.
nuts and chocolate. Yeah, I like
No.
some texture.
Nah, I don't want nuts. And,
No.
Come on. It's like, as someone for whom chocolate is a food group, yeah, putting some fruit, putting some nut in there, that like, one of my 5 a day, surely, if I have enough of it, yeah?
No.
No, and it's like, it's texture. I will say the fruits I'm not too big on. That feels weird, and then the chocolate like falls apart around it. It's the whole thing.
Literally.
But yeah, what do you have in your chocolate?
The most I'll have is like Bounty, because I really like desiccated coconut.
Bounty's nice.
Oh, I love it.
I don't know- I don't know
Everyone
everyone
hates
hates
on
Wow,
it, though.
how do we
Yeah.
have
Why
a
everyone
full
hates on
panel
it?
of Bounty lovers?
No,
Wow, this
no,
is
no.
rare. This is
Bounty's
rare.
nice.
Yeah.
Woo!
Everyone's always hating on it, but it's
For
like
real,
amazing.
you know they removed it from the heroes.
Yeah, I saw.
A
I was so upset about that. Yeah,
travesty.
they removed it. People were hating on it so much they removed it.
Jesus.
Justice for Bounty.
Justice
Yeah.
for if you take one thing away from this, okay, forget the garden, forget Coco. We want justice for Bounty.
But I wouldn't buy in a shop. It's only if I like I see it in like celebrations or heroes.
I'll
and I'll
buy
take
it.
it. I wouldn't go out my way and buy it from the shop.
Well, I guess you won't be seeing it in celebrations
Yeah.
anymore, so you might want to reconsider that.
So when it comes to Christmas time and then the school brings in celebration, it's not gonna be.
Yeah, I picked the Bounty.
Yeah, but like everyone, the best thing about being a Bounty lover, yeah,
No one
is
looks
that
like-
people pick everything clean, and then you
Yeah.
just have a full box of
Yeah.
Bounties
Yeah.
waiting for you.
Swear to
And it's like 20 times the chocolate anyone else would have ate. Oh, good stuff. So we've talked about food justice a little bit, about how like, you know, the producers of chocolate aren't fairly compensated. You know, it could add to that a lot of the chocolate is made in Europe, in South America, in Africa. They don't have much of an opportunity to use what they are producing to actually manufacture it further, process it further down the line. Same story with a lot of things. What's your experience? What are your thoughts on like ethically sourced chocolates, of like fair trade, of like what's your experience has been? I guess I'm asking. What was that brand called?
Tony's.
Tony's
Tony.
chocolate. Yeah, that's one of them. But there's a few of them popping around. Have you tried it before?
I don't think I have. Maybe.
I wanted to, but it's like £5 for a chocolate bar.
Yeah, that's
I
the
have that
thing.
money.
Yeah,
I do, but I'm just not. I'm not using that for chocolate. Like,
Yeah.
What now?
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, as someone, I'm assuming we're all veteran chocolate eaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, like well, when you're consuming in these levels, it's hard to shell out for these expensive chocolates. It's something, because if we are talking about food justice, if we are talking about like that kind of thing, it's because like yeah, a lot of people can't afford to spend more money on chocolate. Like if I'm getting someone something as a gift, I'll get something nice, you know, some. Honestly, I don't even know if these nice like Swiss chocolates, Belgian chocolates, like where's that money going? I doubt it's going to the farmers,
I think
really.
it's just expensive for vibes.
Yeah.
So that has been our chocolate chat. Thank you for listening to me,
Hafsa?
Cinder.
and have a good day.
Next up, we're going down a slightly darker route, a trip through time. Quinn is going to take us back 200 years to one of the most important and controversial moments in Britain's history, all related to one apparently innocuous flower.
Next up, we will be talking to Quinn about a plant that you've definitely seen like everywhere. You know, it gets pretty hardy, grows across the UK. It is the poppy, innocent little plant, or is it? Tell us some more, Quinn.
Well, it's a spherical pod, and the plant gets turned into opium and heroin, which is much less innocent than the plant itself looks.
So, what got you into this topic?
I find it interesting how such an innocent-looking plant can have such a massive effect on the economy and the politics and history of a country. To this day, we're still feeling the effects of the Opium Wars. Back in the olden times, there was an imbalanced trade between China and the Western world, in which China was supplying the Western world with porcelain, silk, and tea in exchange for silver, and making a substantial amount off of these trades. The West wasn't really supplying China with anything, and so they were losing out on this trade. So they decided, behind the back of the Chinese government, supply the people of China with opium, which was initially used as an anesthetic, but was increasingly used recreationally. It was smoked, which caused addiction. the demand for opium went up, and the trade just got bigger and bigger, and it was causing a lot of harm to the population of China.
What influence does the Opium Wars have on me?
Well, as part of the Treaty of Nanking, after the First Opium War, the island of Hong Kong was handed over to Britain, and it stayed under the rule of Britain for 156 years. Until 1997, it was only just handed back over to China. The political effects in Hong Kong still being felt now from this handover. I have friends who have come to England from Hong Kong because of the political.
That new security bill.
Yeah.
All right, so it touches close to home. How did this escalate into a full-out war?
Well, China made opium illegal because of the damage that it was doing to the population. This didn't stop the opium trade, though, because British merchants and Western merchants would sell the opium to private merchants who would in turn sell it to smugglers who would bribe corrupt government officials in the Chinese government, and the opium still found its way to China. So the Daoguang Emperor charged Governor General Lin Zexu with ending the trade, and he did this by seizing all opium in the port of Canton and having it destroyed, which the British did not like. They sent in the British military in May of 1840 to bombard the port of Canton.
So let me get this straight. The Chinese made it illegal to sell opium, and then the British started selling it illegally, and the Chinese enforced this law, and now the Brits are bombing China to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, sounds familiar.
Yeah, there's a trend in British history, for sure. Britain won the First War in the port of Canton and signed the Treaty of Nanking, in which China had to pay $21 million in reparations to opium traders. In addition to the $21 million reparations, Hong Kong was handed over to Britain, and China was forced to open up 5 treaty cities for trade with Britain. And those were Shanghai, Canton, Ningbo, Fuzhou, and Xiamen.
You're British, yeah?
I'm British-German.
All right, and as a British person, how does it make you feel, like, knowing that this happened?
Well, it's hard not to be ashamed of the past, of the horrible and unethical things that Britain have done to other cultures. It's really shocking. Well, it's not shocking, and that's the sad part.
It's just history,
Yeah.
Besides Hong Kong is obviously quite a massive part of China's current political climate. Has there been any other knock-on effects from the Opium Wars?
Well, there was a lot of tension in the politics between China and the West for a large amount of history because of this, from the 1700s through to 1997, and still in part today.
So the poppy plant, what can you tell me about it? Where was it? How was it getting to China? Were they growing poppies in the UK or?
Poppy is a very resilient plant. It was grown all over the world, in the UK, in India, in other countries. A lot of the poppies that were, a lot of the opium that was going to China came from poppies grown in India because of the close proximity between India and China compared to Britain and China.
So in this country, obviously poppies are a big thing. On Remembrance Day, everyone pins one to their chest. Is that the same poppy that we're talking about?
No, it's not. That would be the Flanders poppy. It's a different type of poppy.
Oh, okay, but still closely related. When I'm baking, I'm not even gonna lie. I don't bake. I don't have that kind of skill. But when I'm eating, when I'm eating a bagel, when I'm eating whatever, they've got poppy seeds on them. Is that in any way related to the opium plant? Or is
Yeah.
That... Oh.
Yeah, opium and heroin comes from the same seed that is used in baking. So if you eat too many poppy seeds before a drug test, you'll test positive for heroin.
Oh, okay, noted. Was there any further fallout after the Opium War?
Yes, there was a second Opium War, which led to the Treaty of
I love a
Tianjin.
sequel. Okay, maybe not in this situation. Actually. We don't like wars.
No wars.
Yes.
There was a second Opium War, which led to the Treaty of Tianjin in 1858, and France got involved in that war.
Oh.
But it didn't have the same effect as the first war did.
Was this over the same thing?
Yep, the same, just the opium trade.
Wouldn't learn a lesson.
It was still, the opium trade was still illegal, and China decided to crack down on the opium trade again.
Okay.
British didn't like that. A French missionary got executed, and the French got involved.
Okay, so did China lose that one too?
Yes, but
All
only
right.
because the French got involved. Britain was struggling against China in the second one until France came in.
Thanks for that, Quinn. It's amazing how like such an innocuous plant that like grows in the Chelsea Physic Garden, grows all across England. Like you'll see it everywhere. Has had such a huge cultural and social impact, and still does to this day with like the opium epidemics you're hearing all about like around the world.
Thank you.
Something I found amazing with the subjects that have been chosen is that with absolutely no instruction to go down one route or another, each person or group picked exactly what they were interested in nearly immediately. There was no groupthink and everything was completely spontaneous. And this is particularly brought out in the next panel. Anna is here to debate the thorny, esoteric and abstract topic of privilege in gardening with Cinder and Chelsea Physic Garden's finest, Shivani.
Hi, I'm Shivani. I work at Chelsea Physic Garden. We'll be having a panel discussion on the highly relevant and sometimes controversial question of privilege and gardens. And joining me is Cinder and Anna. So, talking about privilege in gardens. When I say privilege in gardens and gardening, what comes to mind?
First thing about privilege when doing gardening, well, the first thing is, of course, the land that you have to own to do gardening. Something. Even I've been speaking with one person and he told me about things like allotments. I didn't know that actually they still exist here in London.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
That's a good kind of alternative for the people who don't have gardens, but still you have to drive away to get to them probably, and you still put in some time into gardening, which commits to the fact that you have to have time. Also, gardening costs a lot in terms of tools you should use and seeds as well.
Another thing to be said about allotments is, well, I don't have any kind of primary experience with this, but everyone I've spoken to about allotments has brought up to me that there's like a 10+ year waiting list for allotments in London, which I almost find hard to believe, which I kind of didn't believe until I heard a few people saying it. But yeah, the land is in demand, but the land is also expensive.
What is garden? How do you think?
Yeah, what is it? It's a good question. Yeah. What is a garden?
It's like a domesticated slice of nature, in a way. Yeah, it can be, there's all types of gardens for display, for research, for growing food. And yeah, I feel like gardening traditionally has been, as was said before, you need land, you need time, a lot of time to invest, because working in a garden and having my own garden space that I maintain, it's like it really is it's a daily job, or it's a very, very heavy, less than daily job, because you've always got weeds popping up. You've got to keep an eye on water, keep an eye on plant health, on pests. Gardening requires a really, really big investment. And while it's something that humans for thousands and tens of thousands of years have been doing, gardening has kind of been taken away from the small scale of everyone knowing how to do it, at least primarily in the Western world. There's just something missing between people and nature that, I'm really feeling it.
How does someone acquire a land? Does it comes from... It's usually a heredity. It's usually inheritance.
Obviously, access to land. Something that you've mentioned is allotments. So people who are lucky enough to have allotments or have a small slice of land, whether it's access to a community garden, let's say, big garden of their own, small garden of their own, and the time it takes to garden, would you say that time these days is used ineffectively? Because yes, gardening requires time, but lots of people will spend hours and hours, say, on a device, watching something on their phone.
That's only a sign of how tired people are. Because if you are not exhausted but you're tired, you can do gardening. Yeah, you can do reading, you can do painting, you can go to the museum or something else, something pleasant, but it's still an active kind of leisure. But when you are dead, the only thing you can do is scrolling on your device, watching TV.
Very true. Absolutely. So gardening does require some of that physical energy. So is gardening accessible for all?
I definitely don't think so. Like, it's a lot more accessible for some than it is for others, especially in London. Like, people, or in big cities in general, people don't have an outdoor space of their own. I'm really lucky that I've got, where I'm staying now does have quite a big outdoor space that I'm able to cultivate. But if you don't have access to like something right there next to you, it's hard to play basketball, say, if you need to travel 40 minutes to get to a court. Say, like, it's hard to garden when you need to jump through a bunch of hoops, go through a 10-year-long waiting list to get an allotment. It's just doesn't feel very accessible for a lot of people, and it didn't feel very accessible for me for a long time too. Like, gardening requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of kind of trial and error, which takes a lot of energy from people that you don't always see returns on until you kind of get to grips with what you're doing. I think community gardens, if there's one local to you, they're an amazing resource. It is how I got into gardening in the first place, and those are kind of, well, they've always been a thing, but I think they're really, really important, kind of investing in those spaces, working in those spaces to make gardening much more accessible to other people. Because, yeah, when you look at gardening, at least like 10 years ago, when you looked at gardening, it was overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly middle class, and things are kind of slightly beginning to change. But I think a lot of work still needs to be done if gardening is going to really become something that everyone has a chance at working in or pursuing as a hobby.
Can I ask you, why do people do gardening?
Different reasons. People might want to grow food. People might want to have like a nice little display to be proud of, have something to do with their time. But I think the core of it is just that people like nature and they want to work with plants. They want to work with, they want to work with plants, and they want to work in nature, work with wildlife, and make a space that's that they can kind of have a space that they can work on, that they can put energy into, and then see stuff come out of that.
You see, to spend time with plants and nature, I think you may do gardening without a garden, because if you want to do something with plants, you may grow them on your window. I think the desire to do something actually defines whether the person will do it or will not. Not much about accessibility. Accessibility plays important role, but it's not, if you don't have a land, you cannot do gardening, and you shouldn't care of plants even if you like them.
Yeah, accessibility ties in with opportunity. Like, if you don't have an opportunity to do something, if you need to do, like, I have ADHD. I struggle with motivation. I give up quickly. If something, and like, a lot of people are like that. A lot of people, if they don't have something tangible that they can get started in easily, it might not feel worth the effort, especially when we're living in this world where, like, I'm spending most of my week working. I want to have some time to cook. I want to have some time to meet up with friends. And then, whoa, the whole day's gone. If things aren't easily accessible, the extra work you need to just get an entryway could go so much further if you put that work into working in something that is already accessible to you.
For the people who want to start gardening, what advice would you give them? How should they start it?
Community gardens is kind of the first thing I'd say. Obviously, living in London, there's like 3 community gardens within 5 miles of me that I could name off the top of my head, which still isn't a lot, so they aren't necessarily really accessible. But if there is one near you, they'll most likely have a volunteers open day. Try to make it down to that if it fits in with your schedule.
Small things are still nice for well-being, I guess. And if you want to grow something from a seed, some kind of herbs, from a bulb, some kind of domestic plants, you can still do it, and it will not take that much time. It will not take that much place, and you will still enjoy this meditational, relaxational process of doing something with the nature in your cozy and quite safe place where you can rest.
Great. Well, I think some takeaways from that are that there's still a lot of unpicking to do with accessibility and opportunity to garden. But at the same time, if anyone wanted to grow something, spend some time in nature, bring plants into the home, those opportunities are there because they are reasonably accessible. So going out into nature, going into your nearest green space, or growing something from a plant, growing from a seed or a bulb with limited resources is doable. But you know, if you do want to get into a gardening career or have an opportunity to, you know, spend more time gardening, there's going to be some big barriers in the way. So thank you so much, both of you, for your insights into gardening, accessibility and privilege. It's been a pleasure to have both of your voices today. So thank you so much.
I'm very sad to say the next section is the last one, and it's a surprisingly contentious topic. Hafsa is back, and she's joined, as ever, by Cinder, and this time, Aisha. They're going to be getting into the complicated world of plants and their meanings.
Welcome to our final discussion. I am joined here by
Hafsa.
and
Aisha.
and we will be discussing plants and what they've represented throughout history, from the present day all the way to the deep, dark, weird, crazy, scary Victorian times. Our first topic of discussion will be Victorian florography, or the language of flowers.
What flower do you guys think represents love?
Roses.
I would say roses.
What colour would you say?
Red.
Yeah?
Well, you could say roses, but more typically carnations. Red carnations are used to represent love. They're more petally than roses, I'd say. And we also have roses. Roses mostly represent friendship, I found. Friendship and jealousy.
So this is how the Victorians would have done it way back in the day.
Yeah, they would just like bring out a bouquet and be like, yeah, this means I love you. Or this means I hate you. They had fun with it.
So was there like kind of a way, like, you know, you were saying you'd give someone a bouquet to say I love you or I hate you. Was there like people were kind of in agreement of like what each flower or what each arrangement means, or?
It was more like a flower, but the same flower could mean lots of different things. For example, yellow roses could mean friendship. On the other hand, yellow roses could mean jealousy or that you hate somebody. So it was kind of like a guessing game when you would give in the bouquet, or it's all up to interpretation.
So if someone who doesn't like me handed me yellow roses, would I just assume it's jealousy?
Yeah, you just have to guess. You'd have to just assume the best.
Vibes-based interpretations. Yeah. I'm down. So if you were to give flowers to a lovely assistant Tommy in the studio, shout out to Tommy, to say that we are grateful for all the work he's put into this, how would we do that? What would we give him?
I think we'd just give yellow, because yellow means friendship, and then we'd have like a little note that says we don't hate you.
We don't envy your amazing abilities of hopping out. We value them. We value you, good friend.
This is like a specific question, but what color would you guys want to represent love?
I mean, I've been taught from a young age that red is the color of love, of lust, of passion, that kind of thing. Fiery emotions and blood. Blood comes into it a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, red.
That's a bit boring though.
Yeah, but you're wearing red right now. I don't see like.
Yeah, but I'm not wearing it out of love. I'm just wearing it because it looks nice.
Okay, I mean, if I was to give someone flowers to tell them I love them, firstly, I'd be very happy to have some love in my life. No, cut that. Yeah. If I was to give someone, I mean, I'd find out what they like, you know, what colors, what designs, what like. But I mean, yeah, I'd pick some colors I like. I'd go for like a purple. I'd go for like what goes nice? Purple and yellow. That's a good combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe some pink around the edges. You know, keep it bright, keep it popping, keep it like eye catching. You know.
Yeah, purple's like rich.
Yeah, because there was like a special to make purple dye. It was from some crayfish or sea shell somewhere that was really, really hard to get, really expensive. So if your robe was white, your toga, you're just a regular person. But if you got like, purple on the edges, you're someone of like consequence, like a judge working in a court or some high up. Whereas the all purple robes, those would be for like royalty and emperors. That's how I remember it anyway.
Yeah, and they're like laws that you cannot wear it if you're not a certain standing. Yeah.
So if I was like a peasant and I was broke and I decided to wear purple, what would happen?
You wouldn't be able to get purple if you were broke and a peasant,
What if I stole it?
Okay.
But yes, that would be illegal, I do
yeah,
believe.
I think you'd be beheaded, honestly. You'd be able to
Then
wear
I'd
it
just
much
take a
longer.
hand for theft.
Yeah.
In the Roman yeah.
No, I think, but a peasant, they'd probably kill them.
True. Poor
they
people
didn't
don't get
care.
rights. Yeah. Honestly, when I think of flowers and florists, all I think about is like, married people and anniversaries.
Oh my god, you and I have very different like opinions. When I think of flowers, I think of like tragedies. I think of like war.
Okay,
that's
no,
something
yeah,
else.
remembrance. That's a big one. Funerals as well, yeah. Flowers are significant because I guess it takes, like, I mean, florists are expensive, but that says something in itself. Like, I was willing to go out, find a nice florist, pick out a bouquet, and bring it to you or have it delivered to you. And that's an investment of time, that's an investment of money. Or like, even I went out, I saw these flowers, I thought it is very emotional, yeah.
Yeah, the plants have different meanings to different people. To some person, it could represent a victim. To another person, it could represent love. Their parents could represent their family member. When I think of flowers, I think about like graves.
people?
Yeah, I think about people
Oh,
with flowers
okay.
on their grave. And I think about people who don't have flowers on their grave. Like, I think about that.
So, can you tell us about victims and flowers, since you mentioned about how it's used for funerals?
Well, one particular one I think of right now would be the Aquilegia plant. This is a plant that was used to represent the Columbine tragedy, where 13 individuals were shot down and murdered by 2 young children under the age of 18. The school that represent the victims of the shootings, they had formed this memorial ground, and inside of it was filled with this Aquilegia plants, known as Columbine plants, that were named centuries ago. Even the actual 2 killers themselves, they had Aquilegia plants all over their own memorial.
What does an Aquilegian plant look like for the audience and for me? I can't actually.
It's purple on the inside. It has white on the outside. So it's really pretty. It's like a sort of like tie-dye plant, because on that fully it's white, but on the inside it's all purple.
I think I know it. They're in window boxes and stuff. Okay, yeah.
They're really pretty. I like them.
So what drew you to this topic, to the meanings of flowers, the meanings of plants?
What do you have, sir?
Oh, what drew me? So there's lots of plants that have lots of meanings. Like, one of the plants I've been researching is called the money tree, which represents prosperity and luck. And I find it really interesting how it's one of those plants that you braid the stem, and it's symbolic of locking in the prosperity and the richness that comes with it. So I thought that was really cool.
Sounds cool.
What about you, Ash?
Aquilegia plants, I like them because they symbolize strength, wisdom, and peace. And when you think about it, like those victims, they need that peace in their life. You think about how other people now, because of the situations happen, they've gained the strength and the wisdom to move past it. The victims, the victims, like there's a whole tree of people going through this whole situation. So when you think about what the Aquilegia plants truly represents, it's actually really deep.
And the families of the victims as well. Some inner peace for them.
Friends, families, the families. It's a long line when you think about it.
Sounds like something close to your hearts.
Yeah. Cinder, do you have any plants that you're interested in their meanings of?
When it comes to flowers, not all too familiar, but I do love to kind of hear the reputation plants have, I guess. Like the idea of plants as weeds and plants as like, all those unwanted plants, dandelions, plantain. We've got that's the grassy thing, not the banana thing. I will say an oak tree is another, oaks are the national tree of a lot of countries. Everyone loves an oak tree, but in Latvia, that's where my mom's from, so I understand that cultural context more. It's like represents strength, it represents wisdom. It's a plant that people know grows for ages. It's got really strong wood. You can make bread from acorns. You can do a lot with an oak tree. And you can make flour from acorns. You can do a lot with an oak tree. You have yew trees, which are often connected with churchyards. You always have a yew tree going in a churchyard. They can live hundreds, if not thousands of years. There's this kind of chicken and the egg situation that I should look into more, but because there are so many yew trees planted in churchyards, it's that question, were yew trees there before the churches, or were the churches built because there were yew trees there, or were the yew trees planted around the churches?
I think one thing we can conclude is that plants have a meaning in every shape and form. Like, specific plants can represent specific things to different people. Like, money tree is wealth and fortune, a bonsai equals harmony and wisdom and, you know, fertility, and a cactus is like protection and endurance. People believe different things about plants.
Peace.
I'm gonna go home and think about plants tonight.
Plants are cool. I've fallen in. Thank you for what has been an amazingly informative discussion. You guys know your stuff, and it's amazing to know that, like, you know, flowers have had and continue to have such deep meanings across the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
And that, sadly, is everything for today. Doubly sadly for me, because I had the amazing privilege of working with these incredibly charismatic, charming, and enthusiastic young people. But an extra special thank you to Cinder, of course, but also behind the scenes to Tommy Edwards, who is a creative producer at Octavia Foundation, and Shivani Patel, who is the Community and Youth Engagement Manager at Chelsea Physic Garden, and you heard a bit from her earlier. They were both there every step of the way, in the garden, in the studio, and they really went above and beyond. If you've liked the content, listen to the other episodes of Chelsea Physic Garden's podcast, and come to the garden itself to see some of the amazing plants whose secrets have been so thoroughly uncovered. Thank you for listening.